David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. Today I have for you a fairly new budget pen from Sailor called the Compass 1911. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of the Sailor Compass 1911, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about the pen. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. This is a pen that I purchased in order to review. It wasn't one that I probably would have picked up on my own, but when a reasonably priced pen like this comes out that I feel folks would like a review of, and it's not something a retailer or distributor or manufacturer has sent my way, then I pick one up. Supporting me on Patreon helps support these purchases. So for those who are patrons, I greatly appreciate it, and you help make these reviews like this possible. As well as watching and subscribing here on YouTube. The pen arrives in this rather large box. I thought the size of this box was a bit odd, and it's like the converter is more on display than the pen. Now, this converter is kind of cool. Now, I've taken it out of this package. It's already in the box. We'll get to it in a little bit. But this package almost kind of seems like something that would go on display in a retail store. We had the converter. There's also a use and care guide, as well as a pair of Sailor cartridges. And then we have the pen. This is a Sailor Compass 1911. The barrel and cap are injection molded resin. It is available in 8 different translucent colors. There is a blue, a yellow, an olive, a red, a green, a purple. There's this pink model right here, and then there is a clear transparent model as well. I wouldn't really categorize this pink as like bubblegum pink. It has more of a red tone to it, so it's more of a magenta. This pen is light, but in my opinion, the material doesn't feel cheap. It's almost identical in size to that of a Sailor 1911 standard. Let's start by taking a look at the cap. The top is rounded. I like how you can get a good look at what's going on inside the cap through the translucent material. The clip is similar in shape to that of the 1911 large, as well as the standard models, but there are a few differences. The bend at the top is a bit more square on the Compass. And then the clip on the Compass is devoid of any of the 2 vertical lines that you'll find on most other Sailor clips as well. Also, something minor that I noticed, on each of my other Sailor models with this style clip, here's an example of one of them. You can see here on the underside of the clip, it is bent inward, so the end is more rounded and you can slide it in and out of things easier. On this particular Compass, the end isn't really bent inward, so there's a bit of a gap there, which potentially could get caught on a thin pocket or something along those lines. At the end of the cap, there is a metal band, which is stamped with Sailor and made in Japan. There is a medium-sized step down to the barrel, which then tapers down, and the end of the barrel comes to a rounded point. The cap unscrews with 2 1/4 rotations, and underneath we have this stainless steel medium fine nib. This pen is only available in medium fine. If you don't have much experience with Sailor nibs, you'll find this medium fine to write similar to a Western extra fine. It is rather firm and has a fair amount of feedback to it, but I don't find it to be overly scratchy. I thought it was odd that right out of the package, there was this fiber stuck in the nib. There also seemed to be a bit of waste material in the tine slit. This is why it's a good idea with just about any new pen to inspect the nib and flush it out with warm soapy water before inking it up. Even with the traditional Sailor anchor, I think this nib looks a little bit plain. I think it's because of the lack of scroll work around the edges. There's just a lot of open space on this nib. And then here's a look at one of my favorite features of this pen, the clear plastic feed. This is what the feed looks like before it's inked up, and then this is what it looks like afterward. It really accentuates the color of the ink of your choice. Here's something else. Here I loaded up the pen with a new cartridge, and it's cool how you can see the ink making its way through the feed. The section begins with a slight flare. It raises just slightly and transitions into the plastic threads, which I don't find to be sharp or uncomfortable if your grip should rest on them. And there's a fairly small step up to the barrel. I do like the size of this section, and I can maintain a decent grip even for longer writing sessions. The Compass isn't the longest pen, but it is plenty long enough to use unposted. The cap does post, and it does post securely. And I find the edge of the cap to be rather smooth, so it doesn't grind against the inside of your palm if it should rub up against it. The Compass is a cartridge converter pen. Sailor does utilize proprietary cartridges and converters, so Standard International will not work with this specific pen. There are 2 cartridges included as well as this converter. Now, something I think that is pretty cool with this piston knob on the converter is that it matches the color of the pen, this one being pink. I will say on some of the other colors, the converter color matches the pen a little bit closer. The converter for this model is a bit of a different shade of pink. Now, I do find it interesting, though, that through the translucent barrel, the knob almost looks white inside here. But either way, I think it looks a lot better than a standard black knob, so that's a good thing. In regard to eyedropping this pen, while it contains no interior metal, the barrel is not one solid piece. There's a separate piece here right on the end. I did experiment with this and filled the barrel with water just to see if it would leak, and while it didn't, this junction is a little concerning and it's potentially could cause an issue. So eyedropping this pen wouldn't necessarily be recommended. There are 2 threads on the cap, and I like that how when you hit one of the threads, the nib is facing down in a coordination with the clip, and if you hit the other thread, then it's facing up. I don't know if that's just a coincidence on this specific pen, but I care for it, and I will give Sailor the benefit of the doubt and assume that it was intentional. The Sailor Compass 1911 is available from a wide variety of retailers and sells for $39.20, which puts it in the price range of pens like the Lamy Safari or the Faber-Castell Loom. Now, when I was getting started in fountain pens, there was certain milestone pens that folks in the community seemed to celebrate more than others. Purchasing your first Sailor pen was one of those milestones. Now, I'm not saying that the Compass is on par with the Pro Gear or the 1911 Standard or Large or even the King of Pens, but it's a good entry point into the brand. If you're looking for a big, fat, juicy nib, then this is not the pen for you. But if you want a precision writing line and a well-built pen from a respected brand at a reasonable price, then the Sailor Compass 1911 is worth checking out. Now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, and a writing sample. Here we go with size comparisons for the Sailor Compass 1911. Here it is with a Conklin Duraflex, and then here it is with a Lamy Safari. This is the petrol version, and then here it is with a TWSBI Eco. And then in regard to some other pens, here it is with a Pilot Prera, and a Pilot Metropolitan, and then finally a Faber-Castell Loom. In regard to some uncapped comparisons, here it is with that Prera, and then the Faber-Castell Loom, and then finally here it is with the Safari. So here we go with the writing sample for the Sailor Compass 1911. And this is a medium fine stainless steel nib. And the ink I'm using, since this was a pink pen, I had to use a pink ink. And the ink is one I reviewed recently, which is Kala Neon Pink. This is what the ink looks like. It is definitely a neon ink. And, you know, I really don't have any comparisons as far as other neon pink inks, so I thought I'd show some of the other Kala neon line. There is the purple as well as the blue. I do have a review of this ink on my channel if you'd like to see the entire Kala neon line. I think it's something rather special, and it's just very cool ink. And I think that it looks really nice. I know I showed pictures, but you could really get a good look at how that pink ink really shows up well here in that feed. Which without the ink in here is very clear. So it's kind of cool that it adds another color element to your pen, whatever color you have in there, whatever ink color you have in there. Okay, so let's get on with the rest of the writing sample. As I mentioned in the review, this is almost like a Western extra fine. You're really not going to get much line variation out of here. It is rather stiff, and it does have a bit of feedback to it. It's almost like writing with an unsharpened pencil, but it's not scratchy or anything along those lines. It just feels very precise. In regard to reverse writing, I'd say that's not necessarily a strength of this particular nib, but in regard to some fast writing, and the feed has no issue in keeping up. Okay, so there we have the Sailor Compass 1911. I think that this is an interesting addition to the beginning level pen market, that it's well built. I enjoy Sailor as a brand as a whole, and that I enjoy this nib as well. There's not a lot of kind of fine and extra fine nibs that I really care for, and so this is one that writes very well and I enjoy, and so I have a feeling that this is probably going to show up in ink reviews down the line when I am looking for more of a fine or extra fine nib. So you're probably going to be seeing a lot of this down the line in some ink reviews. Okay, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.